On May 20, 2025, a tense and dramatic incident unfolded near the Russian-Ukrainian border, drawing intense international scrutiny. According to Russian officials, a swarm of Ukrainian drones targeted President Vladimir Putin's helicopter while it was flying over Kursk Oblast, a region just a few hundred kilometers from the front line of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. This alleged assassination attempt marks a startling escalation in the use of drone warfare and highlights the growing audacity of Ukrainian forces in their fight against Russia's military presence. The Russian Air Defense Commander, Lieutenant General Yuri Dashkin, was quick to provide an official account of the event. Dashkin stated that Russian forces successfully detected and intercepted a large number of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, heading towards Putin's helicopter. He claimed that the air defense systems engaged the drones at a significant distance, preventing any damage or threat to the president or his entourage. Dashkin emphasized the sophistication and coordination of the Ukrainian drone attack, describing it as a highly organized operation aimed at destabilizing Russian leadership at a critical moment in the war. Despite these official claims, independent verification of the incident remains elusive. No third-party agencies, journalists, or foreign governments have confirmed that an assassination attempt took place, which raises questions about the reliability of the Kremlin's narrative. Analysts suggest that while the Kremlin has strong incentives to portray such an event as a foiled attack to bolster internal support and justify heightened security measures, the absence of concrete evidence invites skepticism. The lack of satellite images, video footage, or corroborated eyewitness accounts means the story relies heavily on Russian military sources, which have been known in the past to control or spin information related to sensitive events. The Kremlin responded to the alleged attack with swift rhetoric, condemning Ukraine's actions as terrorism and a direct threat to Russia's national security. President Putin himself did not publicly comment on the incident immediately, but close aides reinforced the message that Russia would not tolerate such provocations and would respond decisively. The Russian government also tightened security protocols around high-ranking officials, especially those involved in military and diplomatic operations linked to the Ukraine conflict. On the Ukrainian side, official statements have been more circumspect. Kyiv neither explicitly confirmed nor denied responsibility for the drone strike. Ukrainian military officials have instead focused on their broader campaign against Russian forces, highlighting their use of drones and other modern technology to disrupt Russian operations. Analysts interpret this silence as a strategic move to avoid escalating tensions further or providing Russia with a pretext for retaliation. This incident, whether fully accurate or partially exaggerated, signals a dangerous shift in the conflict's dynamics. The targeting of a national leader's aircraft with drones pushes the boundaries of modern warfare and reflects the evolving role of unmanned technology on the battlefield. It raises concerns about the vulnerability of political figures and the increasing risks associated with high-profile military engagements in contested zones. As the world watches closely, questions remain about the true scope and impact of the May 20th drone attack. Was it a narrowly averted disaster, a propaganda effort, or something in between? The lack of clear evidence leaves room for debate, but the event undeniably adds a new layer of tension to an already volatile conflict. The implications stretch far beyond the immediate moment, influencing military strategies and diplomatic relations in the months and years to come. Ukraine's defense strategy has increasingly relied on drones as a critical tool in its ongoing conflict with Russia. Over the past year, unmanned aerial vehicles have become a centerpiece in Kyiv's efforts to counterbalance Russia's superior numbers and firepower, allowing Ukrainian forces to conduct precision strikes, gather intelligence, and disrupt Russian operations in ways that traditional forces cannot match. One of the most significant moments highlighting Ukraine's growing drone capabilities came in November 2024, when drones were used in a bold and unprecedented attack on Moscow itself. Several small, armed drones penetrated deep into Russian airspace, targeting critical infrastructure and demonstrating Ukraine's ability to strike at the heart of Russia's capital. This attack shocked many analysts and revealed the vulnerabilities in Russia's air defense systems, forcing Moscow to rethink its approach to homeland security and the threat posed by drones. The November strike was both a tactical success for Ukraine and a psychological blow to Russia, showing that Kyiv could bring the war directly to Russian soil. Since then, Ukraine has continued to refine and expand its drone warfare capabilities. Ukrainian forces have deployed a variety of drones, ranging from inexpensive commercial models modified for military use to more sophisticated military-grade UAVs, to conduct surveillance, relay battlefield information, and deliver explosive payloads. These drones offer a flexible and cost-effective means to harass and degrade Russian forces, striking supply lines, command posts, and logistical hubs with greater precision than traditional artillery. The incident on May 20, 2025, involving the alleged assassination attempt on President Putin's helicopter, underscores just how far Ukraine's drone capabilities have come. It suggests that Ukrainian forces are not only using drones for tactical battlefield advantages but are also willing to take bolder, riskier actions to target high-value individuals and strategic assets deep inside Russian-controlled territory. This shift represents a new phase of drone warfare that blurs the lines between conventional combat and targeted assassination attempts. Drone warfare fundamentally changes the nature of modern conflicts by lowering the risk to human operators while increasing the potential reach and lethality of attacks. Drones allow smaller or less technologically advanced militaries to challenge larger forces by exploiting vulnerabilities in air defenses and command structures. They also complicate defense planning, as drones can be deployed rapidly, in large numbers, and often with a level of stealth that makes them difficult to detect and intercept. Moreover, the use of drones raises significant ethical and legal questions. International laws governing armed conflict have yet to fully catch up with the realities of drone warfare, leaving gaps in accountability and regulation. The blurring of military and civilian drone use also poses risks to non-combatants and raises concerns about the potential for escalation and unintended consequences. In Ukraine's case, the embrace of drone technology reflects both necessity and innovation. Facing a much larger and better-equipped adversary, Kyiv has adapted by integrating drones into a broader asymmetric warfare strategy. The success of this approach not only affects the immediate conflict but also signals a potential shift in how future wars will be fought globally. As drone technology continues to evolve, the Ukraine-Russia conflict serves as a live battlefield proving ground, illustrating the growing importance and dangers of unmanned systems in modern warfare. The implications reach far beyond Eastern Europe, influencing military doctrines, defense spending, and international security discussions worldwide. Following the alleged assassination attempt on President Vladimir Putin's helicopter, Russia responded with overwhelming force, launching a massive retaliation against Ukraine. On May 22, 2025, Russian military forces unleashed a coordinated strike involving 367 drones and missiles targeting multiple Ukrainian cities. This large-scale assault marked one of the most intense escalations in the ongoing conflict, sending a clear message of Moscow's willingness to respond decisively to any perceived threats against its leadership or territory. The barrage targeted key urban centers, including Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Dnipro, aiming to cripple Ukraine's infrastructure and military capabilities. The drones, many of which were armed with explosive payloads, flew in complex waves to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses, while missiles struck critical installations such as power plants, transportation hubs, and military depots. The sheer volume of attacks caught many observers by surprise, revealing a significant buildup in Russia's offensive capabilities and willingness to escalate the war dramatically. Casualty reports from Ukrainian officials indicate that the assault resulted in considerable loss of life and widespread destruction. Hundreds of civilians were killed or injured, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble in the hardest-hit cities. Hospitals, schools, and residential areas suffered damage, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis facing millions of Ukrainians already displaced by years of conflict. Infrastructure damage also caused prolonged power outages and disrupted water supplies, compounding the difficulties faced by civilians and emergency responders alike. Ukrainian military sources confirmed that while their air defenses managed to intercept some of the incoming drones and missiles, the sheer scale of the attack allowed many to penetrate, and caused significant damage. The psychological impact on the Ukrainian population was profound, intensifying fears and fueling calls for stronger international support to counter Russia's aggression. The international community reacted swiftly and with concern to Russia's massive retaliation. Western governments condemned the strikes as disproportionate and indiscriminate, emphasizing the targeting of civilian areas as violations of international humanitarian law. The United States, European Union, and NATO allies reiterated their support for Ukraine, announcing plans to increase military aid, including advanced air defense systems designed to counter the growing drone threat. At the same time, diplomatic efforts intensified, with calls for urgent ceasefire negotiations and peace talks to prevent further bloodshed. However, Russia's hardened stance and justification of the attacks as a legitimate response to Ukrainian aggression complicated these efforts. Moscow framed the assault as necessary to protect its sovereignty and security, accusing Kiev of escalating the conflict through provocations like the drone attack on Putin's helicopter. Meanwhile, human rights organizations and the United Nations expressed alarm at the civilian toll and the humanitarian consequences of the escalation. There were renewed appeals for humanitarian corridors to allow aid and evacuations, though access remained difficult amid ongoing hostilities. This latest escalation underscored the fragile and volatile nature of the conflict, highlighting the risks of a broader regional war with devastating consequences. It also brought into sharp focus the challenges of addressing modern warfare's evolving tactics, where drone technology plays an increasingly central role. Russia's massive drone and missile assault served as a stark reminder of how quickly localized incidents can spiral into widespread violence, drawing international attention to the urgent need for diplomatic solutions. As the conflict enters this dangerous new phase, the world watches closely, hoping for restraint but preparing for further escalation in a war that shows no signs of abating. The attempted assassination of President Vladimir Putin using Ukrainian drones triggered an immediate and intense reaction from world leaders, highlighting the global stakes of the ongoing conflict. The incident not only escalated tensions between Russia and Ukraine but also sent ripples through the international community, prompting a range of diplomatic responses that reflected the deep divisions and complexities involved. Among the most notable reactions was the statement from Pope Leo XIV, who urgently called for peace and restraint from all parties involved. Emphasizing the devastating human cost of the conflict, the Pope appealed to both Russian and Ukrainian leadership to return to the negotiating table. His message underscored the moral imperative of protecting innocent civilians and avoiding further bloodshed. By invoking humanitarian concerns and spiritual authority, Pope Leo XIV sought to transcend political divides and push for dialogue amidst the escalating violence. In stark contrast, former U.S. President Donald Trump issued a strong condemnation of Putin, describing the assassination attempt as evidence of a regime under threat and suggesting that Putin's aggressive policies had brought the conflict to this dangerous point. Trump's remarks were widely interpreted as supportive of Ukraine's right to defend itself, though he also warned against deeper U.S. involvement, reflecting the complex and often contradictory American approach to the war. His statements fueled debates within the U.S. and among NATO allies about the balance between military aid and diplomatic engagement. European leaders largely echoed calls for restraint but expressed growing concern over Russia's escalating military retaliation. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz stressed the importance of unity among European nations in supporting Ukraine, while simultaneously urging renewed diplomatic efforts to prevent a wider war. French President Marie Dubois highlighted the need for coordinated sanctions against Russia alongside intensified peace negotiations, warning that failure to resolve the conflict could destabilize the entire region. China's response was more measured, emphasizing respect for sovereignty and urging all sides to avoid further provocations. Beijing's position reflected its strategic interest in maintaining stability while balancing relations with both Moscow and Kiev. This cautious stance signaled China's desire to play a mediating role without alienating either party. International organizations also voiced concern. The United Nations Secretary-General called for immediate humanitarian access to affected areas and condemned any attacks targeting civilians. The Security Council convened emergency sessions, though deep divisions among permanent members limited concrete actions. Meanwhile, NATO's Secretary General announced increased support for Ukraine, including advanced defensive systems designed to counter drone attacks. These diverse reactions had significant ramifications for international diplomacy. The high-profile statements amplified pressure on Russia to halt its retaliatory strikes and engage in meaningful dialogue. At the same time, the mixed messages from global powers reflected the ongoing challenges of forging consensus on how to resolve the conflict. The stark division between calls for peace and continued support for Ukraine's defense complicated efforts to initiate productive negotiations. Moreover, the incident heightened concerns about the use of drones in warfare and the potential for such tactics to destabilize international security frameworks. Many leaders acknowledged the need for updated treaties and agreements to regulate drone use and prevent further escalation. In sum, the global response to the assassination attempt revealed both the urgency of ending the conflict and the deep geopolitical fault lines that hinder progress. While voices like Pope Leo XIV's offered hope for peace, the reality on the ground and the hardened positions of key players suggested a long, difficult path ahead. The international community now faces the critical task of balancing pressure, diplomacy, and support to navigate this precarious moment toward a sustainable resolution. Intelligence and surveillance are crucial components in detecting and preventing high-profile attacks like the attempted assassination of President Vladimir Putin. In modern warfare, especially in conflicts involving state and non-state actors, securing key political and military figures requires a multi-layered approach combining human intelligence, electronic surveillance, and advanced technological defenses. In the case of the May 20, 2025 drone attack near Kursk Oblast, Russian intelligence agencies reportedly maintained heightened alert levels following previous drone incursions. Continuous monitoring of airspace through radar, signal interception, and satellite reconnaissance plays a significant role in early detection of hostile drones. According to statements by Russian officials, their air defense systems detected the incoming drones but were unable to neutralize all threats in time, underscoring the limitations even of sophisticated technology. Human intelligence networks also contribute vital information, providing early warnings about planned attacks or unusual movements on the ground. However, intelligence gathering in wartime is inherently difficult due to deception, misinformation, and the constantly evolving tactics used by adversaries. Ukraine's increasing use of small, agile drones complicates detection, as these unmanned vehicles can fly at low altitudes and use stealth technology or jamming countermeasures to evade radar. Securing high-profile leaders during wartime presents unique challenges. Leaders often travel with complex motorcades, helicopters, or planes that require secure air corridors and ground support. Protecting these routes from unconventional threats like drones demands integrated defense systems capable of rapid response and layered coverage. Russian Air Defense Commander Yuri Dashkin's acknowledgement of the near-miss highlights how even the best preparations may not fully guarantee safety in such volatile environments. Moreover, the element of surprise in drone warfare makes it harder to anticipate attacks. Unlike traditional missile strikes, drones can be launched covertly from multiple directions, making coordinated defense difficult. The dynamic nature of drone swarms increases the challenge, requiring continuous innovation in detection and interception technologies. In addition, wartime intelligence must balance operational secrecy with the need for timely communication among defense units. Any delays or gaps can prove catastrophic in preventing an attack. In summary, intelligence and surveillance are indispensable but not infallible tools in protecting leaders during conflicts marked by evolving threats. The Kursk incident exposes vulnerabilities that both Russia and other nations will need to address as drone warfare becomes a standard element of modern military strategy. The ongoing arms race in detection and countermeasures will likely define the security landscape for high-profile targets in future conflicts. Throughout history, assassination attempts on world leaders have shaped political landscapes and altered the course of nations. From the early 20th century, with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggering World War I, to more recent attempts on prominent figures, these attacks reflect the high stakes of global power struggles. In recent years, drones have emerged as a new tool for targeted attacks. The 2023 Kremlin drone attack marked a significant turning point, as unmanned aerial vehicles were used to breach the security perimeter of Russia's seat of power. That incident involved multiple drones flying over Moscow, with some detonating near sensitive government buildings. Though the attack did not cause casualties among leadership, it demonstrated the growing capabilities of drone technology and exposed vulnerabilities in even the most secure environments. The recent May 2025 attempt on Vladimir Putin's helicopter in Kursk Oblast shares similarities with the 2023 Kremlin attack but also reveals important differences. Both incidents involved Ukraine employing drones to directly target Russian leadership, indicating an escalation in tactics. The 2023 Kremlin attack was more symbolic, aimed at Russia's capital and political center, designed to send a message rather than cause immediate harm. In contrast, the Kursk attempt was a direct strike on Putin himself, with drones targeting his personal aircraft. The use of drones in these attacks highlights a shift in assassination methods from traditional means, such as firearms or explosives planted on vehicles, to remote, unmanned systems that minimize risk to attackers while increasing operational reach. This evolution presents new challenges for security forces, as drones can evade many conventional defenses and strike from unexpected angles. Historically, assassination attempts often involve complex conspiracies and insider help, whereas modern drone attacks rely more on technology and battlefield control. The Kursk attempt shows how frontline warfare and political targeting now overlap, with Ukraine leveraging drones as both military assets and tools for psychological warfare. In comparison to previous assassination attempts on world leaders, like the 1981 shooting of Ronald Reagan or the multiple attempts on Fidel Castro, these drone strikes demonstrate the increasing sophistication and lethality of modern conflict. While past attacks often relied on close proximity, drones enable long-range precision targeting without risking operatives' lives. Overall, these events underscore how assassination attempts continue to evolve with technological advancements, forcing governments to constantly adapt their security measures in an increasingly unpredictable world. The Kursk incident, following the 2023 Kremlin drone attack, signals a new era in political warfare where drones are central to both offense and defense. The attempted assassination of Vladimir Putin using drones quickly became a focal point for media outlets around the world, each framing the event through their own political and cultural lenses. Major Western media, such as CNN, BBC, and Reuters, highlighted the unprecedented nature of the attack, emphasizing the use of drones as a new form of warfare and the potential implications for global security. These outlets often underscored the risks of escalation and the fragility of peace in Eastern Europe, while cautiously noting the lack of independent verification of the event. Conversely, Russian state media portrayed the incident as a failed Ukrainian aggression, emphasizing the strength and readiness of Russian air defenses. Their coverage aimed to rally domestic support by highlighting statements from officials like Air Defense Commander Yuri Dashkin, who claimed the drones were successfully intercepted and that Putin was unharmed. This narrative reinforced the Kremlin's message of resilience against external threats and sought to justify Russia's retaliatory strikes against Ukrainian cities. Social media platforms played a pivotal role in shaping public perception, acting as a battleground for competing narratives. On one hand, platforms like Twitter and Telegram were flooded with real-time updates, videos, and speculative analysis, fueling widespread discussion. However, the rapid spread of unverified information also led to misinformation and conspiracy theories. Some online communities questioned the authenticity of the drone attack, while others exaggerated its consequences or linked it to broader geopolitical conspiracies. Public reactions varied widely across regions. In Western countries, many viewers expressed concern about the potential for escalation into a wider conflict, sparking debates about the role of drone warfare and the international community's responsibility to intervene. Meanwhile, within Russia and Ukraine, emotions ran high, with some supporting the actions of their respective governments and others fearing the human cost of continued hostilities. The digital age's speed and accessibility have transformed how such events are consumed and understood. While information spreads faster than ever, the challenge lies in distinguishing fact from fiction. The Kursk drone incident serves as a reminder of the importance of critical media literacy and responsible journalism, especially during times of conflict, when misinformation can exacerbate tensions and mislead the public. Ultimately, media coverage and public perception of the attempted assassination reflect the complex intersection of modern warfare, information control, and global politics, underscoring the need for transparency and careful reporting in an era defined by digital communication. The attempted assassination of Vladimir Putin using drones marks a significant moment in the evolution of modern warfare, signaling a shift toward increasingly sophisticated and unconventional tactics. This incident underscores how drones have become not just tools for surveillance or minor strikes but critical assets in high-stakes military operations aimed at strategic targets. The use of drones in such a direct assassination attempt reveals their growing role as force multipliers that can bypass traditional defenses, challenging established military doctrines. Moving forward, this event is likely to push military strategists worldwide to reconsider the balance between offensive drone capabilities and defensive countermeasures. Countries may invest more heavily in advanced air defense systems specifically designed to detect and neutralize swarms of drones, reflecting the unique challenges posed by these smaller, agile devices. Additionally, the incident may accelerate the development and deployment of electronic warfare technologies aimed at disrupting drone communications and navigation systems, adding new layers to the battlefield. On the offensive side, the success or near success of drone strikes against high-profile targets could encourage militaries to integrate drone swarms more aggressively into their operational playbooks. This could lead to more frequent use of drones for precision strikes on leadership figures, infrastructure, or critical assets, thereby lowering the threshold for engaging in targeted killings or sabotage without risking large-scale troop deployments. The incident also raises urgent questions about the legal frameworks governing drone warfare. Currently, international laws on drone usage remain vague and inconsistent, particularly when it comes to cross-border strikes and targeted assassinations. The Kursk attack could prompt calls for clearer international agreements to regulate the use of armed drones, balancing the need for self-defense with concerns about sovereignty and civilian safety. Organizations like the United Nations may face increased pressure to establish comprehensive treaties defining acceptable drone conduct, accountability for misuse, and protocols for conflict escalation. Without such frameworks, there is a risk that drone warfare could spiral into a chaotic arms race, with states and non-state actors exploiting technological advances to carry out covert or deniable attacks. In summary, the attempted assassination of Putin by drones represents both a strategic turning point and a legal challenge. It highlights the urgency for nations to adapt militarily while pushing the international community to develop clearer laws that govern this rapidly evolving domain of conflict. The future of warfare will undoubtedly be shaped by how effectively these issues are addressed. The recent drone assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin represents not only a dramatic escalation in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but also a critical juncture for the prospects of peace. Such a high-profile attack could either push both sides closer to the negotiation table out of fear of uncontrollable escalation or deepen hostility, fueling further violence and distrust. On one hand, the boldness of this attempt reveals the increasing desperation and determination on Ukraine's side to strike decisive blows against Russia's leadership. Ukrainian officials have framed the operation as a necessary act of defense and a demonstration of Ukraine's growing capabilities. Some Kyiv politicians have cautiously suggested that while military pressure is crucial, it should be coupled with diplomatic efforts aimed at ending the war. However, Ukraine's stance remains firm that any negotiations must respect their sovereignty and territorial integrity, leaving little room for compromise on key issues like Crimea and the Donbass region. From the Russian perspective, this assassination attempt has been met with fierce condemnation and accusations of terrorism. Kremlin officials have used the incident to justify harsher security measures and military responses, portraying the attack as proof of Ukraine's unwillingness to engage in genuine peace talks. Russian leadership, including Putin himself, has warned that such provocations could lead to unpredictable consequences, signaling a potential hardening of their war posture. The narrative coming out of Moscow emphasizes the need to root out terrorist threats and protect national unity, which could translate into further crackdowns both militarily and politically. International mediators have expressed concern over the impact of this escalation on the fragile prospects for peace. The European Union and the United Nations have reiterated calls for immediate de-escalation and dialogue, but with tensions at an all-time high, the window for meaningful negotiations is narrowing. Analysts worry that the assassination attempt may polarize hardliners on both sides, reducing incentives to compromise and increasing the risk of prolonged conflict. Ultimately, whether this incident becomes a catalyst for renewed peace talks or a trigger for intensified warfare depends largely on the political will of both Russia and Ukraine, as well as the influence of global powers seeking to broker peace. For now, the shadows of mistrust and retaliation loom large, leaving the future uncertain. In summary, the recent assassination drone attempt on Vladimir Putin marks a pivotal moment in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, revealing the evolving nature of modern warfare. This incident underscores the dramatic rise in the use of unmanned aerial vehicles as strategic weapons capable of striking even the most heavily guarded leaders. The boldness of the attack signals a shift in military tactics, emphasizing precision, stealth, and psychological impact. We explored how this event not only intensifies the ongoing hostilities but also forces a re-evaluation of international laws surrounding drone warfare. With technology advancing rapidly, global regulations are struggling to keep pace, raising critical questions about accountability and the ethical boundaries of conflict. Moreover, this escalation exposes the fragile state of peace prospects, as political leaders on both sides react with hardened rhetoric and caution, casting a shadow over any hopes for negotiated settlements. As global citizens, it's essential that we recognize the profound implications of such developments, not just for the countries directly involved but for international security as a whole. The weaponization of drones and the escalation of targeted attacks challenge the very framework of conventional warfare and diplomacy, pushing us toward an uncertain future. I encourage you to stay informed about these unfolding events by following trusted news sources and engaging in thoughtful discussions. Share your perspectives on social media, participate in community dialogues, and support efforts that promote transparency and peace building. Understanding the complexities behind headlines like these empowers us to advocate for policies that prioritize stability and conflict resolution. Finally, remember that while these dramatic stories capture global attention, the real impact is felt by millions of lives affected by war's devastation. Raising awareness is a vital step toward fostering a more peaceful and secure world. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future updates on global affairs. Let's stay vigilant, informed, and engaged together.